Yo, 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 hey guys, it's me, Freedom What Ifs, and today we're doing What If Asta was Gojo's reincarnation. I damn near said Deku. But, yeah, anyways, this is a series I've been wanting to remaster for a long time because it is one of my best series, but I very much didn't do the best when I was creating it, so I want to try redoing it. And yeah, I put up a poll a while ago and you guys really wanted to see this too remastered, and I thought, why not? Sorry I haven't posted in like the last 3 weeks. I've been doing a bunch of stuff such as exercising, getting better, well, because I was sick for a little bit, and also the fun fact of just been going out with a few friends, because I usually don't do that, but COVID restrictions finally starting to lift, I can hang out with my friends a bit more, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me get enough, you guys probably had enough of this rambling and just want to see the video. So anyways, that's it. Without further ado, play my intro. Alright, now that's let's get straight into it. If you guys enjoyed the series, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to hit 2K before May 21st because that's when I hit 1,000 subscribers. And I just thought, hey, it would be pretty cool if my subscribers doubled in like a year. So, yeah. Anyways, let's get straight into it. Pretty much, we start off with Gojo. Yeah, let's do the highlights on my first one. So we start off with Gojo, and he had just recently defeated Sukuna and Kenjaku, which, if you guys read the manga, you know who he is, but if you don't, I guess it's a slight spoiler. But yeah, he would end up dying cause I'm going to say that Kenjaku ended up somehow finding the inverted spear of heaven. And yeah, he would have ended up being stabbed, and it would have been so bad that even his reverse curse technique would have been able to help him, right? And as he'd be dying, he would finally think, well, at least I saved the world. And the Arrow sorcerers would be left in good hands with, Megumi, Itadori, and I'ma say, Kugisaki, I'm pretty sure that's her name, but Nobara. So anyways, this is when he would just die. Now we have the birth of Asta. Asta would still be born the exact same, was to drop out of the orphanage, but in this one he would have had his name embroidered on his shirt, I must say, and he would have whitehair hair. Unlike his sort of grayish white, it would be that pure solid snow white, sort of like Gojo's. And he would actually be born with blue eyes. I'm talking the 6 eyes, right? But anyways, this is when father would go outside, which is, the father of the church, and he would see the 2 children outside, this being Asta and Yuno. They would bring him in, and Yuno would act the same, being pretty calm, but Asta would be a bit more mischievous, right? He would have a smile on his face, and he wouldn't be giggling like it was in canon. He would just have this smile that would seem to warm people's hearts. Now, let's time skip about 6 years, and I know 6 years, that's crazy, but yeah. I must say, when Asta was 4 years old, he would have started physical training just because he believed that he needed to do so to become a good magic knight. From there, we would have him being 6 years old, and father would have told him to go and deliver a letter, right? So he would have done so, and while returning, they would see that it would start snowing, so they sort of hurry up. While hurrying up, they would have bumped into this one drunk guy. Now, he would have been a bit pissed off by a bunch of kids bumping into him, but this is when he would see Yuno's necklace. And immediately his mood would change. He's like, hey, kid, give me your necklace. And obviously, would decline as he start tearing up a bit because this is his only thing he has to connect with, his parents and all of that. And the guy really wouldn't care, as he would then decide, I wasn't asking, kid, as he would suddenly charge up this massive ball of water, and he would shoot it directly at Yuno. Now, obviously, Asta would have jumped in front of it, and he would have pushed Yuno out the way, but he wouldn't have had enough time to move himself out the way. And as he would see it coming, this is when he suddenly feels a spike of energy, this being cursed energy. and through just pure instinct alone, and with the help of the 6 eyes, he would have been able to use it to reinforce his body, and the damage would have taken would have been minimum. Now some of you guys like, but still, even if it is cursed energy, he is a kid, and the guy is decently old, he must know his magic, right? One, he is a commoner, and most commoners have low amount of magic, and their magic spells aren't really that strong unless they're like a magic knight, or a retired magic knight, so yeah, this is when he would pretty much just shrug it off pretty good, and the guy would be like, kid. But before we can even continue talking, this is when Asta would, his slight, with his 6-year-old body, which he had been training, and his newfound sense or control of cursed energy would have completely ran up to the guy and hit him directly in the head, knocking him out and causing him to go unconscious. I just said the same thing, fuck. But anyways, right, this is when Yuno, who had previously been crying, would have seen Asta, right, in all his glory, pretty much unscratched when fighting this guy who already unlocked his magic and seemed pretty good at it. He would see Asta and he would just think, I want to be like that. Is this what it feels like to be strong? If so, I'll stop crying. And he wanted to be like Asta. So his way of doing as such was that he became cold. But anyways, right, Asta would have the smirk on his face, the regular trademark Gojo smirk, as he would start to think, so this is my start. I'm gonna become the strongest, the Wizard King. And he would then turn himself towards Yuno and then stick his fist out, saying, you're gonna be my rival throughout this journey, like just this journey, okay? We are gonna be the strongest. And Yuno would just nod his head as they would hit a fist bump. We had time skip about 2 years, and Yuno would have started to gain his way around his magic, and Asta would have showed the nurses or the sisters and father at the church about his cursed energy. They wouldn't know what it was because they wouldn't be able to see it, but they would be able to see it, but they wouldn't be able to sense it, right? It didn't feel like mana. So obviously they'd be a bit surprised, but they would just think, he must have some sort of strange magic and all of that, right? But anyways, this is when Asta at the age of 8 would have actually gone out to the forest to start training. And while doing such, would have been attacked by this giant boar, okay? I'm talking massive, like adult size. Adult size and total size, okay? Like adult size and total size, not like adult size, but yeah. Sorry, that was a bit confusing, but this is when he would be attacked by that, and obviously using his cursed energy, he would have been able to get in a few good licks, but he would obviously be damaged, because even at this point in all his training, he would still be on the list of being able to fight. And I'm gonna say this boar would be a bit magically enhanced, because I'm gonna just say, because most animals in most animals in Blackclover seem to just be stronger than regular animals. So this boar was obviously stronger, and as it would go to hit Asta one more time, he would get this flashback. He would appear to be in this sort of dojo, right? He wouldn't know what a dojo is, but it would just feel right to call it such. While doing so, he would look forward and he would see this guy who would also have white hair, but not blue eyes. I'm going to say green eyes. This man would be named something Gojo, right? I'm not sure what I was going to name him, but yeah, something Gojo. This is when he would say, You are special. Someone born in the clan since 100 years to have both the 6 eyes and the Limitless. Well, anyways, this is the first technique of the Limitless. Curse technique Infinity. And this is when he would show it, as he would have another member of the clan hit him, but the member wouldn't even be able to touch him, right? As he would then say, this is the first ability of our curse technique. And then the flashback would just fade. Now obviously Asta, who would have actually been able to get a sort of experience from this, and he would innately just use curse technique Infinity. As the boar would then go to attack, but he realized that it couldn't seem to move, right? As if it was stuck in place. Because his senses betrayed him, right? Even though he thought he was moving forward, the space between him and the kid didn't change, so he just thought he was stopped. Using this confusion to his advantage, Asta would have deactivated Infinity and would have gone and hit the boar directly in the head and, snapped off a tusk and killed it, right? This would have been his first kill, so obviously he would have been throwing up a bit, but he would realize that he had to steel himself because it's going to happen a lot more as a Magic Knight. Anyways, he would bring the boar home and he would tell his parent, father, that he accidentally ran into a boar, but he defeated it. But father would be a bit surprised, but he would just nod his head, right? Now we would have Asta. Let's do another 2-year time skip, right? Yeah, he would be 10 now, and he would have pretty much mastered Infinity. At this point, he would have started hunting a lot more, and due to another accident, he would have had another flashback of this someone Gojo, right? And this would have been when he would have been taught Curse Technique Lapse Blue. And this would have been a technique that pretty much just created a vacuum in space, causing a multitude of things to be attracted towards it. And if used directly on an organism, it seemed that their 4 limbs would just seem to, how would I explain it? It'd be like they would like twist until blood would eventually burst out and all their bones would be broken and all of that, right? We would have actually corrected this while fighting a bunch of boars, and he would realize that he would have been part of this so-called Gojo clan. He wouldn't know what memories are from, and he wouldn't tell the father about it because he think that it was weird, because no one else in his church had these memories about a clan called the Gojo clan. But still, this is when Asta would change his name to Asta Gojo of Hodge Village, right? But anyways, have another 2-year time skip, right? This is when Asta would have pretty much sort of perfected Curse Technique Lapse Blue, and he would just be learning Curse Technique, or sorry, I'm just calling it right. It's like Curse Technique Lapse Blue Maximum Curse Energy Output, but I'm just gonna call it Maximum Curse Technique Lapse Blue, and this pretty much be an evolved version of the regular Lapse Blue, being instead of creating a vacuum space, you just pretty much create a miniature black hole that he'll be able to somewhat control. This is a lot stronger than the regular Lapse Blue and would have actually destroyed a decent amount of area when he was hunting, right? Now at this point, his village would be, the slightest bit more rich, and it would just be a pretty much good area in general. He would have been called a genius because he would also have started trying to learn martial arts, but nothing we know, right? He would mostly be on his instincts, but just by that alone, he would already learn a lot, and he would just be called a prodigy within the village, right? At this point, would have also looked up to Asta, and he was also starting to increase his training by a lot. At this point, would have actually had, I'm gonna say, a bit more magic power, or magical energy than in canon, or mana. And he would also start training physically, sort of like how Asta did in canon, to sort of make the gap between him and Asta, right? At this point, he also have a better control over his magic too, being able to actually use Wind Magic Tower Creator without actually having his Grimoire just yet. But just to keep in sense, I'm just saying that Yuno at the age of now 12 is stronger. Now we would have another 2-year time skip, and this is when Asta would have been, I'm gonna say, 14? I'm not sure when I stopped with the 12 or 14, but yeah, he would now be 14, I'm gonna say, and he would have actually gotten this headband. It would be this black headband I had in canon. Instead of putting it over his head, he would actually have it over his eyes. This being because the 6 eyes is sort of like a high resolution camera, even through a blindfold. So without it, it started to have a few drawbacks, such as, I'm gonna say, like a bit of exhaustion, curse energy usage without having to use it, and much other stuff, right? At this point, he realized that using the 6 eye to be able to see other people's magics in extreme detail, and he'd also be able to sort of differentiate between different people, right? Because people who had fire magic would have sort of hotter mana, people with water magic would have a cooler one, people with ice magic would have sort of colder one, all of that, right? He'd just sort of be able to differentiate between people and their magics, right? Giving them a sort of insight on what magic they most likely use. But anyways, he would just get the headband put over his eyes, and at this point, he would be as strong as, I'm gonna say, yeah, canon Asta, and with the use of curse energy, he would be even stronger. At this point, he would have somewhat mastered curse technique, or maximum curse technique Lapse Blue, and he would just generally be stronger, much stronger than Asta was at the start of the series. And I'm gonna say 1-year time skip, and he would just start learning about reverse curse technique. Now, some of you guys might be wondering why he learned the techniques so fast, or why he perfected them. A reason being, he's a prodigy, and the 6 eyes gives people, or gives people or part of the Gojo clan, an how would I explain, like an overwhelming amount of control, right? Like he would be able to use, let's say we have Itadori, right? He'd be able to use Itadori's he'd be able to use Itadori's skills or Sukuna's skills if he had them a lot more times than Sukuna would himself, just because he has the six eyes, right? The six eyes give him an unprecedented amount of control, and it would just be a hack in total. It also allow him to sense people around this area while also being able to see kilometers away. But right now, for Asta, it'll just be like a few kilometers, like 2 kilometers away, pretty much. But yeah, today would be the day that they're going to get their grimoires, right? So Asta and Yuno would obviously walk up there. They get the speech by the old guy, and this is when grimoires would start falling down. And then from all of these grimoires, there would be this grimoire that seemed to be clad in this golden light, and it would fall down towards Yuno, revealing itself to be a 4-leaf grimoire. Everyone would go wild to think, a common getting a 4-leaf? What? And this is when Yuno would announce, I'm going to be the new Wizard King. Now, obviously, Asta didn't get a grimoire just yet, and everyone would start looking at him and start ridiculing him, right? Thinking, he didn't even get a grimoire. Should have expected that from a commoner. Or, someone from, the, the rural areas of the village or kingdom or whatever. And this is when it caused Asta's curse energy to sort of spike, right? Because Asta at this point would still have his smile, right? But he would be pissed, thinking that just because he didn't have a grimoire, he could become Wizard King. That's a joke. If that's so, I don't need a grimoire. I'm still going to be the strongest. And this is when his curse energy would start to fluctuate a lot more, and everyone would just see this aura around Asta, right? This blue aura. And this is when a certain devil in a grimoire would feel this too, and it would be like, seems to be sort of like mana, but it isn't. Maybe he's gonna be what I need to finally take down that demon. As suddenly this black energy outlined in red would suddenly fall towards Asta as he would reach his hand out. And when taking it, he would see this grimoire in his hand. This grimoire would have a 5-leaf clover, and many people wouldn't see that a 5-leaf clover except Asta, right? But he wouldn't really care. He had a grimoire now, and that just meant he would be even stronger. He had to train even more to control his power. But rest assured, he was going to be the strongest. Let's time skip a bit. This is when he would turn towards, not time skip, but he would have turned towards Yuno and said, no, I'm going to be the magic, or, the Wizard King and all of that, right? As he then walk out and start to continue his training. This is when Yuno would have actually been attacked by a chain mage, but unlike in canon, Yuno would have actually been able to take on chain mage by himself because of his training to sort of catch up to Asta would have actually made him grow a lot stronger. So the chain mage wouldn't actually be able to do anything much, and he would be subdued pretty easily. This is when we have the 9-month time skip, and Asta would have a decent grasp of reverse cursed energy. Now, he's not going to perfect it just yet, because I don't want him using red just yet, but yeah, he would have a decent grasp over it, but he just wouldn't be able to really use it in any offensive sort of way, because curse energy times curse energy gives you positive curse energy, right? And that's how you use reverse curse technique. But he wouldn't be anything offensive, just use it to like heal and all of that, right? So as of currently, we would now time skip 9 months like I said before, and he would be heading towards the Magic Knights exam. Obviously you go there with Yuno, and this is when they would have, the Grimoire check and whatever, right? Everyone would be surprised that Yuno has a 4-leaf Grimoire. The guy at the Grimoire 7 actually asked his Grimoire is even a Grimoire, to be honest, and if you can even see with the blindfold around his eyes, but this one also would just nod his head and say, yes, it is a real Grimoire, and the guy understand would have no choice but to, accept, because it did look like a Grimoire. So anyways, they would be walking through, and Asta wouldn't bump into Yami, because it wouldn't make sense. He has the 6 eyes and all of that. And quite obviously, he wouldn't bump into Yami, but he would still have that interaction, right? He would turn towards Yami and say, oh, you're a pretty big guy. Are you a captain? You have a bunch of magic. Magic energy, or mana. Yeah, I'm gonna just call it mana. You'd have a bunch of mana. Seems to be dark in nature. You probably have some sort of dark magic, don't you? And this is when the guy would look towards Asta and like, kid, what? Like, okay. As he would then, just walk away. As Yami would think, he's a pretty strange kid, but he knew my magic without even knowing who I was. It might be a good addition to the Black Bulls. As we just keep on going, right? People around would start saying, hey, isn't that like Yami the Destroyer? Like that, the captain of the Black Bulls? And he also be like, oh, he really was a captain. Nah, anyways. He seems pretty strong. I bet me and him could become great friends or something like that. And this is when he just continue on going. Now we would have the first test, which really wasn't a test, but just give the captains an insight on how much magic energy they have. Sorry, mana they have, right? And obviously, Asta should have been swarmed by a bunch of magic or anti-magic birds, but in this one, because of cursed energy being sort of maleficent or malicious in nature, anti-magic birds wouldn't really want to be around him, with the exception of Nero, or as you guys would later know as Sekre, right? She would obviously go and join Asta because Asta would actually have the 5 Grimoire that she was supposed to be guarding and all of that. But anyways, we now have the first exam, which would be to fly. And Asta, as of currently, hadn't learned how to fly, so he would honestly just stay on the ground. Everyone started asking why, but he would just say he wouldn't know how to fly yet, and they would just accept it. Next, we have the target, whatever, right? And Asta would honestly just use curse technique, lapse blue, on the target, sort of collapsing on itself, right? And yeah, we have a few more tests, and honestly, besides the magic flying exam, he wouldn't really do too well in all of that. So we now have the fighting. This is when obviously what's his name, Seke, would decide he wants to fight Asta, because he doesn't even have a lot of cursed energy, plus he seems to be decently weak. He can't even ride a broom, right? So obviously Seke would challenge Asta to a match, and Asta would just nod his head. And this is when Seke would then say, "Huh, you've been falling directly into my trap. This is the ultimate defense and offense. Bronze magic something something, right?" As create the spear around him that not only defended him but also shot out these sort of like bronze projectiles. This is when Asta would be like, another one of them. As Seke would be confused. What do you mean another one of them? It's like another weakling in my way. But anyways, I'll take care of you swiftly. As he would then open up his grimoire and bring out his anti-magic sword. He would have still learned swordsmanship from that one diamond captain guy that uses for like the diamond kingdom and all of that. We still learn swordsmanship, just like a lot better because of the 6 eyes. And yeah, this is when he would go towards him, and just like in Canon, actually no, even worse than Canon, right? He would hit Seke, and Seke would go flying into a wall, breaking past that wall and go even further, right? Seke at this point would pretty much have like a broken leg and like a broken legs and like arms and all of that, right? And everyone would be surprised with the amount of just sheer energy he held, right? For someone who seemed to have a lack of magic and couldn't even ride a broom, he seemed to have this much energy in him. That's crazy. Do you have some sort of like enhancement magic or something like that? But no, some of the captains would have seen that his sword would have been able to cut through pretty much the magic. It would have been like, what? So would he have some sort of like magic, sort of like the Green Mantis's captain that didn't have like severing magic, right? But yeah, let me calm down a bit because I'm going way too fast. But anyways, this is when eventually, we also fight this one noble and win with decent ease, right? Even easier than I did in Canon. And this is when we have the podium, whatever. As us, would go up, we get all captains raise their hands. And obviously, would pick the Golden Dawns. And this one also would go up, right? And in this one, he would get the Black Bolt, but he would also end up getting, I must say, the Green Mantis, and, who's it called? And also, Aqua Deers. Yeah, I would just say Aqua Deers. Or something like that, right? And this is when Asta would look through all of this. And you know what he would say? He would say, I choose the Black Bulls. And everyone would be surprised. What? The Black Bulls? And this is when he would say, from what I've heard, they're a bunch of so-called misfits, right? But that can't be true, right? They're probably some of the strongest in y'all bunch. And from what I've heard, their captain is equally as strong. I'm gonna bring their group to the very top, okay? And this is when he would just smile it off and just walk away. Obviously, Yami would be a bit surprised, but he would be like, huh, that's the type of kid I like. Pause, obviously not pedophile, but yeah, this is when that moment would happen, and pretty much Asta would join the Black Bulls. While joining the Black Bulls, we would have Finral Yami teleporting them to the base, and this is when Asta would walk and introduce himself saying, hey, my name's Asta Gojo from Hodge Village, and this is when everyone would still end up fighting, right? But this is the moment Yuno would slam his hand into the wall and say, "Hey, shut up!" As everyone would just calm down, right? Seeing that, their captain was finally back. This is when Asta would say, "Okay, my name's Asta Gojo again, from Hodge Village. Nice to meet you." As we've done, sort of like small salute and all of that. And everyone would be a bit surprised because the first thing, "Hey, is he blind?" And it's like, "Oh, what sort of magic does he have?" And Locke would say, "Hey, fight me." And this is when Gordon would still be, Gray would still be in, her transformed state, looking a bit menacing. Then we also have Gordon, which just sort of stutter to say his hello. And then Vanessa would say, "Oh, you're pretty hot," and all of that, right? Pretty much all the Black Bulls would be present, except for the one that controls the house, I forgot his name, and Noel. This is when Magnum, I need to stop saying this is when, but Magnum would pretty much walk up to him and say, "Huh, so you seem to have gotten chosen during the Black Bulls. But you still have to go through initiation, right?" And obviously you'd be like, "Initiation?" It's like, yeah, even though you joined the Black Bulls, you haven't really joined the Black Bulls, right? You still need to get your robe. And this is when Magnum would start the initiation, right? So pretty much it would just be to survive a bunch of his attacks. At first, he would start by throwing a bunch of fireballs directly at Asta, right? And obviously, Asta wouldn't even really do nothing. He would just activate Infinity, which would cause fireballs to stop before they hit him and just disperse. Everyone would be a bit surprised, and Magnum would start trying a lot harder until eventually we'd be like, "Huh, well, it seems you're decently strong." But that is enough, as he would then send this massive one, the same way he did in Cannon, right? And it was called like the exploding fireball, whatever. And in this one, Asta would actually try to test something. He would take off Infinity, and he would then bring out his anti-magic sword, this being Demon Slayer's sword, and he would swing it sideways directly at the magic. From what he could tell, the anti-magic sword was cladded in the sort of magic that negated magic, right? So he thought you maybe hit it by the side of it, he'd be able to reflect magic, which it worked. The magic would immediately reflect, and yeah, to say the least, Magnum would catch the full brunt of his exploding fireball, sending him flying sky high until he fell back down, and you just say, "Huh, you're amazing, kid. Welcome to the Black Bulls." As then, Magnum would give him his robe, and Vanessa would then offer to stitch the Black Bulls insignia onto his headband, which Asta would still, say yes to. And as he did, he would take off his blindfold to show his magnificent, radiant, dazzling blue eyes, right? Everyone would start like, "Damn." And this one, y'all would say, "Kid, you have beautiful eyes. What the hell? Why do you cover them up?" This is when Asta would say, "Let's just say I have special eyes, okay? I see a lot better than probably what any of you guys here can see. So I tend to keep them closed to reduce the drawbacks and exhaustion, honestly." But yeah, well, anyways, can't wait to see you guys later or tomorrow. And this is when he would just walk his way and find his ring, right? Now we would have the next morning, Vanessa would return his headband, and he would take it back, cover his eyes again, and now that would also have the Black Bolt insignia. We would then go through as Magnum would start to introduce him to all of the stuff that they have, and this is when eventually Magnum would eventually run into Noelle with Asta. Now, obviously, Noelle would still be on her high horse, as she would say, "Oh, yeah, I'm part of royalty and all that shit." And Asta would say, "I don't care," as he would then sort of start talking with Magnum again, because Magnum sort of earned respect, right? Magnum wasn't strong, he didn't have a lot of magic, but he still was someone who he would sort of look up to for the next while, right? But this is when Noelle would get pissed, throw a robe directly at them, shoot a magic ball that would, instead of hitting Asta, would hit Magnum, right? And honestly, Asta wouldn't even activate Infinity, because he already knew from the way the magic was moving that it wouldn't hit him, right? But yeah, he realized that Noelle had no control over her magic, and Noelle would just run back outside to sort of try to practice her magic, right? She would end up being in this sort of course like she was in Canon, but he would see that she wouldn't be able to hit any of her shots at the singular target that she put up. Pretty much anywhere that her target was not, she would be able to hit. And this is when Asta would try to slowly get out the bushes and sort of talk to her. But this is when Nero would fly in and rustle some leaves, right? And hearing this, Noah would instantly turn towards Asta. Asta would then stand up and say, "Hey, so it's..." Before he can finish his sentence, right, Noah would start to have PTSD, and this would cause Ryan to go out of control. I'm talking majorly out of control. And because of that, it's sad to say, but she would actually very much so be in that water ball she was in can, floating up in space, right? And this is when everyone in the pretty much everyone in the black bowls would be would sense this and be like, what? As they would all immediately run towards there, but they would see that it would be this massive orb of water in the air and no the center of it, right? Now obviously Yang was thinking of using dark magic black hole, but that wouldn't absorb all of it. And he would then just say, I wish we had someone here who could actually, negate magic. But this when Asta would actually see this and it's like, huh? What? I can negate magic. And he's like, oh, for real, kid? Okay, well, hold on tight. And this is when Asta would be a bit confused before eventually Yang would just grab the back of his neck and just throw him directly at the spear of water. Asta seeing this would then immediately, or Asta being the center of this, would then immediately regain his bearings and start bringing out his anti-magic sword to slice the magic directly in half, right? And it would end up catching Noelle, and Fenrir would end up summoning a portal under them to actually land them back on the floor, right? As they landed, Noelle would have been expected, or would expect to be completely ridiculed, right? But this is when everyone would say, oh, I didn't tell you couldn't control your magic and all of that. And, oh, we could have helped you and all of that good stuff, right? As Noelle would start to tear up and say, you guys are like the best and all of that, right? And this is when she would see Asta would say, just say the word and I'll help you, okay? And this causes her to sort of blush. And this is when her crush on Asta would start to begin. And should I do the other arc? Might as fucking well. So, yeah. This part's gonna be a bit speeded through, but it would be the next day, and Asta would ask, hey, what does Magic Knights even do? Everyone would be in an uproar, and this is when Magnum would simply say, we do missions, quite obviously, for stars. Currently, we're down negative, like 100 stars, something like that. And Asta would be surprised, what, negative 100 stars? And he would just say, oh my god. But this is when Yami would pull up and say, okay, so this old man wants us to go out a bunch of boards, it's a mission. And it would be this favor, right? This favor that you had to do because Magna and Yami would have actually lost in the bet. So he would end up sending, obviously Asta, Noelle, and Magna on this trip. As none of them could really ride a broom, they would all end up catching a ride on Magna's broom, which looked not too bad, but yeah. End up going to the village, but as they approached the village, this is when Asta with his 6 eyes would have actually sensed that there would be a sort of disturbance up ahead, right? A massive amount of magic just being used to sort of cover the village. So obviously you tell Magna to go at full speed directly towards the magic, which he would, and then they would see the sort of mist surrounding the whole village. This is when Asta would have brought out the anti-magic sword and swiped out all the mist while rushing inside and maxing body with cursed energy. While doing such, he would have seen a bunch of ice spikes about to fall onto the villagers, and he would immediately use maximum curse technique, lapse blue, causing sort of a black hole in the sky, and he would do it like just above all the ice, but enough that it wouldn't attract any buildings, right? So all the icicles would have actually ended up being condensed into this massive one that would eventually implode and create sort of like sparkles of like ice, right? That would do 0 damage to anybody. This is when he turned to his side and then he would see this Heath guy, right? He would see that this is the guy who had sent the attack because his mana was cold in nature. And he'd be like, hey, what are you doing? So when he would look at his clock and be like, seems like we have a slight disturbance. But anyways, I'm just cleaning up all the mess. People with low amount of magic shouldn't be allowed to live. This is when Asta would just be disgusted, right? As we think, what? And this is when he will reply, yeah. People with low amount of magic shouldn't be allowed to live. Just a waste of time and space. Anyways, I'm gonna finish this up soon. He then sent this large like icicle at Asta, right? But also using Fanny would just Asta using curse technique lapse blue would just attract the sword somewhere else that couldn't cause any damage, and immediately use curse technique to rush directly at Heath. Heath who was barely able to really even sense the magic Heath who was barely able to keep up with Asta at his past speed would be completely blitzed by Asta boosted with curse energy, and to say the least he would be knocked out with complete ease. And then from there, Noelle would still end up unlocking her Sea Dragon's Cradle, because I'm gonna say a few mages were still attacking the civilians, and that's how she would unlock her, right? From there, Magnum would end up using his exploding fireball scatter shot, which would hit all of the other mages, knocking them out, and then imprison them. In this point of time, the grandpa would still be alive, I must say, and this is when Nero would actually come out of nowhere and axe and bring this magic stone towards Asta. Now, obviously, Asta couldn't accept this, and she'd say, my fault, she was just following me around for a long time. Sorry that she took this. And this is when the old man would say, take it, you saved our whole entire village, right? And this is when the kid would look towards Asta and say, hey, can I be a magic knight too? As, who would be enthusiastic, right? And this one he would say, yeah, you can be an magic knight even if you are from a place, or from the outskirts, right? Because he himself was from the outskirts, right? And he's still here, and he's pretty strong. This is when the kid would just nod his head in complete joy, and Asta would just smile, right? But before you could do, this moment would be short-lived, as Heath would wake up and commit suicide, pretty much, as it would then kill everyone in the group, and the moment would immediately go from this sort of joyful to this sort of grim mood, right? Obviously, the villagers wouldn't really care, as they thought they deserved it, but the Magic Knights would obviously be a bit saddened by this, right? Noelle, who had never really seen death up close, would start to vomit and feel nauseous, and Magnum would just be able to clench his fist, as you would think that's horrible. And also, it would be the worst, actually. Ishkar's energy would be overflowing, as he would seem to lose control for a slight bit, until he regained his bearings and said, anyways guys, we gotta go back to the base. Okay, everyone in the village, hope you guys stay safe, and yeah. Anyways guys, let's go now, as they would all head back to the base, and yeah, that's where I'm gonna end it off. Hope you guys all enjoy. This was What If Asta Would Go to Reincarnation, Part 1 Remastered. Sorry it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but I just needed to record a video, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Without further ado, hope y'all have a good day, and what else can I say except stay cold, stay frosty, peace.